just a little bit about my story, because
Yeah, please.
for a long time I had no clue that I had childhood traumas or sexual traumas when I was a child. But when I was 30, I had a big trauma in my life, and all of my area of my life collapsed. So I started to kind of like I had a reset. And I started to do my own development journey or inner journey.
Yeah.
And for a long time, for therapies to another training and healing sessions and everything, I did everything. And I remember that I had a sexual abuse when I was 19. I was working on that. I felt absolutely recovered from that. But then I had an amazing retreat, and then a black box opened for me like a Pandora. Realized that I had a childhood abuse as well, and sexual abuse. And the shock was for me that nobody told me. So most of the time, and this is the big issue, that we are not aware. Our conscious mind is blocking the pain.
Right.
Then season 2, I realized we are all experiencing some kind of post-traumatic stress right now in one way or another. Here we're going to talk about post-traumatic stress, complex PTSD, all kinds of abuse, abandonment, relationships, and suicide. We're going to have real-life examples as well as take-home tips to help you get started your healing and recovery today. I've got an amazing lineup of fantastic guests and specialists. Let's get started right now.
Welcome to Multiform PTSD. Here's your host, Tracy Lowry.
Today, we have the pleasure to meet this beautiful soul, Andrea Steigler, who is an online and in-person coach that helps people work through their childhood and sexual traumas. After years of oppressed memories of her own childhood abuse, sexual abuse, and several near-death experiences, suddenly her life collapsed around her. After forcing her to self-reflect and heal from those traumas, she finally found a way to heal and live life with an infectious energy and zest for life, and now helping others do the same. Listen as she tells her inspirational story of heartache and pain and how she used it to heal and then help others do the same. Please welcome Miss Andrea Steigler.
Welcome, Andrea Steigler. So happy to have you here today, all the way from Budapest, Hungary. So glad you're here. How are you?
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I'm really fine. Thank you very much. Even though we have a big quarantine and, limitations to do things. Yeah, and it's really challenging to keep the high vibration.
Absolutely. There's so much to this whole COVID thing that, yes, it's important to make sure we're protecting ourselves and our communities and things like that. But our mental health is a little more trying to keep us sane, even those that don't necessarily have a diagnosis of mental health issues or things like that. This is a tough time for everyone, I think, with the isolation and all of the changing rules and things like that. So, but luckily we've got Zoom and technology, so we can still do things like this. So I'm so glad you're here.
Absolutely. And we can meet by continent.
Yes. I have met so many awesome people doing this, and you are absolutely on that list. I love your energy. It is just infectious. It really, truly is.
Yeah, thank you. If we are in a traumatic experience for a long time, even though just a kind of like continuation of something, then we are not realizing we are desensitizing our body. We are getting closer inside and started to do the isolation and depression by ourselves,
right?
Because this is a different mechanism. Yeah. And for me, the post-traumatic syndromes came up right after I left my apartment and I started to be free again. So most of the people, for a year, we are in this situation and we still don't know what will be the side effects later.
Right. I agree 100%. So you work with people who have had post-traumatic stress, but especially when it comes to, it looks like child abuse, sexual abuse. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you help people in those situations?
Absolutely. Just a little bit about my story, because
Yeah, please.
for a long time I had no clue that I had childhood traumas or sexual traumas when I was a child. But when I was 30, I had a big trauma in my life, and all of my area of my life collapsed. So I started to kind of like I had a reset, and I started to do my own development journey or inner journey.
Yeah.
And for a long time, for therapies to another training and healing sessions and everything, I did everything. And I remember that I had a sexual abuse when I was 19.
Okay.
And I was working on that. I felt absolutely recovered from that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had an amazing retreat, and then a black box opened for me like a Pandora.
Right.
Realized that I had a childhood abuse as well, and sexual abuse. And the shock was for me that nobody told me. So most of the time, and this is the big issue, that we are not aware that we experience something, because our conscious mind is blocking the pain.
Right.
And most of my clients remember something, but some of them, which was really, really deep trauma, they don't.
Right.
And that's why it's very, very important that if we are not feeling okay, we are always protecting ourselves, or kind of like wanna fighting. We are always in a fight mode, that we want to be a good girls or good boys, or we want to reach something, but we always have some kind of like big struggle to do something, to reach something what we really, really desire.
Right.
And most of the time, or if we have issues with our body, we have issues, our intimacy and sexuality. Even though in our childhood there was no sexual abuse, just a physical or mental or verbal abuse, absolutely affecting on our body. And through our body, it's affecting on our intimacy, because intimacy is that we are absolutely naked in all levels in front of others. We don't have anything to hide. But it's really simple to recognize that someone has trauma or not.
Right.
But I think most of us have something.
I agree. And I'm glad you brought up the point of, because I too didn't realize or remember that I had a sexual abuse experience when I was very, very young. I didn't remember it for decades later. I remembered a lot of the things that happened around that time, but that event, my brain had totally shut it off. I forgot. And that's our brain's way of protecting us. Our reptilian brain, I've heard it referred to, is just protects us. That's kind of what it does. And so sometimes it just shuts those memories down. And actually, when those memories come up, you mentioned, kind of the Pandora's box opening up. A lot of times it's when we're in a safer place or in a better place individually and personally, that those memories come up, because we feel safe and we're in a better place. And so it's like our body goes, okay, now we can work through this. Now we're going to bring it to your attention. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to happen and come back at the most opportune time to work on it. But when it comes up, it needs to be done and it needs to be worked with. So I love that you work with people on that.
And it's really important what you just mentioned, the safety. Because what happened when we had a trauma, when we were a little child, that we were innocent, we were open, we loved everybody, we didn't judge, right? And we trusted. We thought that everyone, as we started from ourselves, everyone is like us, right?
Right.
And somehow when the trauma, when the shock is happening, what is happening, that we are freezing, I cannot move, I cannot speak, I don't know what to do, because a sudden situation, I have no pattern for that, I have no tool to handle. Because it's too much, as you said, that it's overloaded.
Yes.
And usually we are using in a trauma healing that fight or flight mode.
Yep.
But what I realized when we were really small, we were little kids, then we couldn't fight. We were freezing or we were flying out from our body.
Right.
And both cases, we are disconnected from our body. When I'm frozen, I cannot move.
Right.
I cannot do anything. I'm helpless.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, when the trauma happened with me, it was a kind of like the shocking experience was I was afraid of dying. And my unconscious mind created a program to survive.
Right.
So at that moment, this was the best one could happen with me.
Mm-hmm.
But later, and my body was freezing, or I was not feeling anything in my body because I was flying away from my body.
Right.
I was flight. My body has a natural and healing capability.
Right.
And all the time, until I'm not solve this problem and heal this wound or heal this trauma, all the time it's bringing me in a situations, a similar persons,
Mm-hmm.
to go there and to change this pattern, this program. And later, when I'm not in this kind of situation, and sometimes we are feeling that I don't know why I reacted this. I don't know why I couldn't say. I don't know why I was frozen because this program just it needs like a software, or like a virus. It needs to be in the place all the time and working all the time.
Yeah.
And repeat it. And then the key, what you just mentioned, that in a safe space, it can be healed.
Yes.
When I feel safe, when someone is there, because most of the time we cannot heal by ourselves. So somebody should be there to hold safe space, to be with us. And because we are going back all the time in the past, and we have a lot since, the first happened.
Right.
And why it shut down? Because I don't want to feel that pain, that shame again.
Right. Yes. Beautifully said.
So basically, this is the pattern. This is the cycle.
And I think it's also important to reiterate kind of what you were talking about. We talk about the flight or flight. I don't think we talk about the freeze as much as it happens, because I know a lot of people who have struggled with any kind of sexual misconduct or abuse or rape. They feel guilty that they didn't fight back, or they feel guilty that they didn't do more, or they didn't say more, or when their brain just shut down. It was a protection for them. So they freeze. And it's not a blame shame game. The body does what it does to try and protect you, and it's not your fault. And I think that's huge to make sure that we talk about as well. It's a natural body's response to trauma. Just like if you were to get cut and start bleeding, that's the body's natural response. That's just what happened, and that's not your fault. You didn't do the wrong thing. You were just trying to survive the moment, and pat yourself on the back for that, because it was not an easy time.
Yes, and it's very important because, as you mentioned, not so many experts are talking about the frozen part. Mm-hmm. And I'm working a lot with the body. I have a very special massage, trauma healing massage session. And there I experienced so much, about the body reactions, because if we are doing online, it's absolutely okay. We can do this. And I'm also feeling the other person, because most of the time I'm also feeling in my body. Mm-hmm. And I have that information because I'm present with the person, and that's how they feel safe. Right. Most of the time, we cannot be present with our beloved ones, and that's why it's brand new sometimes. Most of my clients said that I have never experienced so much presence before with anyone. Mm-hmm. So it's also really, really important for feeling safe. Most of the women, I don't experience with men. We have cold hands and feet. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And this is the sign that we experience some traumatic experience when we were frozen.
Really?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very interesting. I truly feel that our bodies give us way more messages than most of us give it credit for. And like you alluded to earlier, it knows how to heal itself. Sometimes it just needs a little guidance, a little help, but it knows how to do it, and it can do it. And it doesn't mean just, when we get cut, again, our body knows to go to that spot and how to heal it. It can do that emotionally as well. I don't know how you feel. I find it very important when I found my team to work with me, it needed to be someone who understood, really have experienced it and understand, because some just don't get it. And that's not, lucky them. I'm glad they don't get it, but it makes it harder for them to help someone. So, but what I love about what you said is when they feel safe with whoever they're working with, it then helps them learn how to feel safe and how to be a little more vulnerable. So then they're kind of practicing it. And then they can start going into other members of their family or other relationships or friendships in their lives, because they're doing it in a safe place first. And it's not as hard because there's not the huge emotional attachment, but they can practice, and then they can start doing and practicing those things with people in their close circle. So I think that's huge.
Yes. And also safety, that finding some space in the body where we are feeling safe. And this is what I also experienced with so many clients. Since they were born, they have never felt, even in their mother womb, they couldn't feel safe. They have no clue about how to feel safe in the body. And we are always looking for safety, money, material things, or relationships, to feel safe. Someone give me safety. But if it's not there, I don't feel safe. And I'm always depending on. And this is most of the time an addiction.
Yes. And the problem is if we learn at an early age that feeling of not being safe, whether it's in the womb or at an early age, then I feel like we almost find more places not to feel safe. It's almost like that's our comfort zone. And so the people that we choose to have in our lives sometimes give us that same feeling, because, and I know there's people out there going, why would you do that? But it becomes your comfort zone. It's what you know. And why do we do it? I don't know. It's the way our body works, I guess. I don't know, but that's your comfort zone. And so that's where you find other relationships. And so if you find, you talked about this, if you find that you are attracting the same type of person in your life where you're maybe shown that your feelings aren't safe or your physical body isn't safe, it's time to really look deep inside and in your past and see, where did that come from? Heal those parts of you so you can stop having that be your comfort zone.
It can be also, and last week I had a session, and it was a really interesting sentence what my client told me, that we found the source that most of the time this unsafety situation or abusive situation makes us safe. Because this is what we know. This is what we learned in our childhood. And as we started to learn standing and moving, that this is all the time who were around us and who were really our caretakers, behaviors, and their everything what they taught us. This is what we know. And sometimes we are in one edge and sometimes in the other one. Because sometimes when we are abused, then when we grew up as an adult, we don't want to be abused again. So we started to be the abuser or making more violation. And sometimes we feel that we are so weak. So we are staying, especially women, we are staying in a kind of like victim space. And this is also really, really important, that after the edges, and sometimes the relationships, sometimes the partners who are mirroring us, they are not completely the same behaviors or characteristics like my father was or like mother was, but the mixing, because I mixed what I learned from my caretakers. But that's why it's not easy to find the source, the core wounding.
And it's kind of like just peeling off the layers.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And when we are ready, we can dive deep in. We can really find the first one. Yeah. For me, it
Yes.
took around 10 years. But for now, as everything is much quicker, so we don't need to find. And as I went through, then I can immediately, even within one session, we can go to the core situation and start to heal it. The key is that find the first one.
Yes. Beautiful. What are some of the signs that maybe you have noticed that someone has some maybe deep internal wounds from abuse in younger years?
Definitely, if I'm not feeling okay with my body, I have body image problems.
Mm-hmm.
That this could be. I have intimacy, sexual problems. I have relationship issues. I cannot find a harmonious relationship. I have fights with my family. So I'm not in a good relationship with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And also with the body, then it's also really interesting experiment I have, that when we were born, our body sensitivity is, let's say, 100%. We are really hypersensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then different kind of traumas we experienced, and this sensitivity is going less and less and less, but all the time, as you know, it's happening continuously. All the time there will be the 100%.
Right.
So now, if I start to compare that, okay, from a 1 to 10 scale, how is this feeling for you, or how you are sensing your body, or what is the sensation, then you are saying according to your scale.
Right.
And maybe my scale is the kind of like 10 or 20 times bigger than yours.
Right.
So that's why you cannot compare. And
Yes.
when I'm doing these massages, then everyone is realizing that, oh my God, I didn't feel so deeply before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my body started to be alive because it was frozen, because, you know, they were disconnected from the body.
Right.
But for a long time, this sensitivity is my 100% all the time. And when I remember, I can compare. So for example, if I cut my hand, then maybe it will be painful first, you know, and then later maybe it was a big cut, and then I had a scar, and then there was a desensitization. And absolutely this happening with us, because it's coming through the trauma.
Yep.
Our body is reacting the trauma. And as our conscious mind remembers around 5-7% of everything, you know, our memories, our body memory is 100%. So everything what happened with us, we are carrying.
Yes. Beautifully said. And I couldn't agree more. I don't know if I could say it as eloquently as you did. So you kind of spoke about it. How have you found that previous abuse, how does that impact future relationships, whether it be with a significant other or family or friends? I mean, it really can impact every relationship. So how does abuse do that?
It's absolutely not harmonious. Some kind of power game is always on. Or we cannot be in the present. We are always digging in the past, and we are remembering or reminding others what did you do. And the other thing is that I'm always taking care of others, and I'm always kind of like pointing others, or instead of going deep inside of me, because I'm really scared what I will find inside. I'm always try to save others or give more than it would be needed, or it's kind of like I'm giving. I'm not open to receive. I'm not open to dive deep. And my focus is in the outside instead of inside. And I'm not satisfied with my life. I'm always fighting and always trying to find something, or drama queen. You know, that the history. I cannot control my emotions. I'm suppressing, kind of like holding back my breath, and suddenly I'm like a volcano erupting.
Yes.
Boom. Just the main symptoms. Yeah, I have other really, really fine-tuned one, but these are absolutely like I have something in my past.
Right. And I love that you said that. And maybe a lot of times people like to compare. I've been through this, you've been through that, mine was worse. Or I shouldn't be affected by mine because so many other people had worse. It's not a comparison thing because we're different. So maybe what would be traumatic to you wouldn't be to me, and vice versa. So that shouldn't be diminishing anyone else's trauma, because maybe to us it's not a big deal. We don't get to judge what other people's bodies react to, because it's a chemical reaction. It's not something they choose to be triggered by. It the body just does it for them, unfortunately. So
yeah, very important. Also that feeling that you are not alone. Yes. And your trauma and your current situation is the most important for you. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to prove to anyone how dangerous or how deep or how, I don't know what kind of, mm-hmm. was that, because we are special. We have a special and individual mission here. And to complete our mission, we had that trauma in our childhood to recover.
Yes. And talking about that, obviously, along with so many other things, people will be dealing with grief. And I think right now, there's a lot of grief, whether it be loss of loved ones or loss of our independence and our freedoms and our normal day of life. What would be some things you could say to help us with our grief from our past, our present? What can people do for grief recovery?
Yes, it's also long time ago, there were like 5 stages of grief. Uh-huh. And now it's really, really good that it said that now everyone is grieving their own way. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are stages, but not like one by one. We can experience differently, and and it's also really, really important to allow yourself whatever is happening. And for me, my last June, my dad died. And so I have a kind of really fresh types of grieving. And it was really, really beautiful on one side, because most of the time it's hard for us because we are scared about dying. Mm-hmm. We are really, really scared, kind of like we don't know. It's the biggest unknown we can have.
Right.
And there are different theories, different religions, different teachings. Mm-hmm. And I'm really, really honored that I had so many near-death experiences, so that I have a different point of about death, mm-hmm. and also about life. Because most of the time, we are not afraid of what will be after dying, or after, what will be the process of our dying.
Right.
But we are scared to face with that we didn't live before. Right. We are not living. We are dying here. We are not enjoying our life.
Yeah.
And this was one of my biggest teachings, that how much I lived, how much I loved, and I allowed to be loved, mm-hmm. and how much I was happy.
You just radiate that. You truly, truly do. It's not just lip service. You can just see it just illuminating from you.
Yeah. And of course, and the other thing is, even though I experienced so much, and I have a different approach about losing my beloved one, I had to go through the grief, and and nobody can be prepared for that. Right. Even it happens suddenly, even it happens for a kind of like longer sickness.
Right. It's coming.
Because we don't know how we can react. We don't know what will come up. The key is that we need to accept whatever is happening. If I want to cry, I'm not holding back my cry in the center of the theater.
Yes.
And most of the time, if we have the trauma, then we learned that the childhood wounds from mother and father wounds. Mm-hmm. This is my other topic, so this is also connected with the trauma. Yeah. That we learn how to shut down our feelings, emotions, our voices, mm-hmm. and that's why the volcanoes are coming off our emotions. Right. And this is what I'm really, really teaching to my clients, to allow our authentic real-time emotions.
Yes.
Because if I'm in a situation, I'm holding back my anger, then the other person will feel it and will use it, because I feel that I'm weaker, that I cannot stand up for myself. So when I'm absolutely bringing up at that time and not projecting to the other, but kind of like, I have anger in me. Right. I have a really, really deep anger right now. Yeah. And I'm allowing and I'm feeling in my bones. And most of the time I'm asking in different body meditations that, what are you feeling right now? I am angry. But this is not, this is coming from the mind, and this is not coming from the body.
Right.
You need to allow, so coming back, that you need to allow our real-time emotions, and whatever is coming in the waves. For me also, there are waves. Right. Like yesterday I had my birthday, I was crying, because this was the first birthday that my father cannot celebrate with me. And I allow that. Now I'm also tears in my eyes, because, this is something brand new experience for me. And I'm allowing that happiness together with sadness. Yes. And I'm allowing it. I'm kind of like, I'm taking authenticity with that. Yeah. I'm also a human being, and I'm allowing and this is how it's so beautiful, that I'm connecting with my body, I'm connecting with my emotions, and with our beloved ones, we have a lot of mixed feelings, and most of the time we cannot express it. And that's why we are suffering because of the loss, and not because of the person who died, but because of us.
I love how you put that. Because, I don't know, there's a way that you said it that just really resonated with me. That even hit me. I was like, whoa, that's beautiful. It really, truly is. And I feel like when we stuff, just kind of shove those feelings down and we don't give them that voice or that time, I think especially those of us who are coaches and are big on trying to stay positive and enjoy life. Sometimes I know I do. I'm having a bad day and I feel like I'm not allowed to be upset. I'm not allowed to be sad. I'm not allowed to be angry. And it just stuffs and stuffs and stuffs. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, it just cry hysterically for days, or I get really, really angry and I blow up at someone who really wasn't the reason why I was upset. And so if we give those feelings the voice and the time and the attention that they need, you're going to need less time to deal with it. You're not going to need as much time because it's not going to have the build up like a snowman or a snowball. And then you have kind of some control over it, rather than letting it snowball and snowball and snowball. And then you have a huge avalanche of all of these emotions and time and pressure, because it just got stuffed and stuffed and stuffed. Then it's going to come out unhealthy and can cause more trouble and more heartache. I don't think enough of us talk about feeling those negative emotions. It's okay. We're not going to be happy 100% of the time. We're human, and we've got to give those negative emotions that time and that voice.
Yes, because this was also shut down. That in when we were kids, then don't do your drama queen, or don't be hysteric, or just shut out, just be quiet right now. Yep. So even though I was very enthusiastic and I wanted to share something, and I was like, no, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I learned that my voice doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or my voice is not heard. How many people are struggling, they want to step out to the world and showing their uniqueness, their genius, but they are not heard. They are suffering that, I'm saying, and also in the relationships that, look, I was telling to my husband several times and he didn't hear me. Yeah. Yes, because when you were a child, then your father told you something and you learn that man cannot hear you. Just one more thing, but just you mentioned that the power, and also the same, that the past is power in us until we are not taking the responsibility for ourselves. So also with the grieving, that if I'm crying about the old times, or in a family that we are always talking about the old times things, and we are still carrying our wounds, that it means that these wounds, this trauma, this pain is powering on us. We are not controlling, we are not leading, control in a positive way. We are not leading our life. We are not taking responsibility for ourselves. We are blaming the past. We are blaming the others.
Yes. And in doing that and blaming others for how we are, we're giving them the control still. A lot of times I see those who have been abused and myself. I'm going to throw myself out there too. I blamed other people for the reason I was the way I was or felt the way I felt. But really, that just continued to give my abuser or perpetrator, it gave them the power. They still had the power to control me. Even if they were dead, if they weren't in my life anymore, they were still controlling me because I was giving them the power that they're the reason I'm this way. When after you can heal those, I mean, to feel that way is normal. So go ahead and feel it and work through it. Just don't stay there. Work through it, heal it, so then you get your power back. You can be who you want to be and no one else can influence that. Who we are should come from the inside, not from the outside. So
Absolutely.
how do you work with people? How do you help them heal past traumas?
This is a really interesting question because I'm working online in the coaching sessions.
Right.
I have also group coaching programs, and I'm doing one-on-one sessions in person. As this very special massage process. And my method is very kind of like customized, and there is no two similar sessions. And that's what you just mentioned, that some of kind of like a lot of coaches are having this protocol and they try to help with the best intention.
Right.
But I'm always going with the flow, being present, keeping the safe space. And this is how the miracles are happening.
Love it, love it, love it. Because everyone's trauma is different. So their healing plans should be different.
Absolutely.
Different ways of understanding and healing. Yoga is one of the ways that I use to heal for me. And I've had clients who I've tried to encourage and they're just like, it's not happening. And that's fine. It's everyone's different. There's so many different ways. And I applaud you for all that you're doing in your special way and for having that safe place for them. And you work with what comes. And if you have planned to work on a certain issue, if that person isn't ready to work on that specific issue, you're not going to get the work done. So you have to kind of peel off the layers and you have to find what those layers are. So season 2, I have a question that I ask everybody across the board.
Okay.
So if you have that listener and is really struggling with their past childhood abuse or sexual abuse or whatnot, and they just don't know what to do, and they're not even sure they want to try anymore because it's just really tough, what would you say to them to help them at this moment?
Yes, they are not alone. This was not their fault. And however they are feeling right now, it can be always better. And everyone has their inner strength, because that's why there is this loop, these cycles. We are always getting back similar situations, similar persons, because there is something inside of us which are bringing us, following the call to heal ourselves. So there is a kind of like natural inner healing capacity, knowledge, wisdom inside of us. And all we are able to, so we have this power to make the difference, to make the change, to transform it, and also that free ourselves from the trauma. And we deserve the best. Oh, we deserve the best.
Yes. What about those that don't feel like they deserve the best? What would you say to them?
We need to start with that. So we were born for being happy and live freely. This is absolutely the sign that a trauma happened. So definitely, if I feel I don't deserve, I would go there and I would ask myself why I feel I don't deserve. Who told me that I don't deserve? When did I learn that I don't deserve? What happened with me? So I started to go deep and ask questions to myself, because answers are always inside of us. And if I start to ask questions, they always are the answers are coming.
Thank you. Because I feel like, and you mentioned, who told you that? Who told you that you weren't enough or you didn't deserve the best? I'm going to take that another step further. And some of the more covert abusive people they're not going to come out and necessarily say you don't deserve good things, but in the way they talk to you and in the way they make you feel about yourself, it's just how you feel. Because I was asked that in one of my sessions working on with me, I was asked, who told you that? And I was like, well, no one told me that. Like, no one told me that I didn't deserve good things. Like, who does that? And there are people who do that. And then they turned the question around, okay, who made you feel that way? Well, then the list just, honestly went on for days. But to differentiate that, sometimes people aren't going to just come out and tell you you're not good enough. There are those that will. But it's just the way that they talk to you or make you feel. So making sure to ask that question to yourself as well.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm glad we had this conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Andrea. You have been a true delight. Thank you so much for being here. Again, your presence and your energy and your soul just come shining through brilliantly. And go hit this girl up. All of the information and her contacts I'm going to put here in the show notes because she's a dream. So follow her on all your social medias. She's fantastic. And I really, truly appreciate you being here with us and spending your time with us today, Andrea.
Thank you very much. It was an honor. I really enjoyed it. And thank you very much for this opportunity. And I would like to give a little gift to the listeners because we were talking about safety. So I have a video series. I made it a few years ago about how we can feel safety in our body. Different methods, how you can find safety, and also how you can find safety in intimacy.
Thank you so much. That is so kind and sweet of you. Was that sweet? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will be checking those out myself.
And I'm sending lots of love to all the listeners.
Awesome. Especially now, I'm sure we could all use a little more love, right?
Yes. And a big virtual hug.
Yes, virtual hug.
Hey, it's Tracy. I'm just here real quick to remind you to please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. We're on all major podcast platforms, including Google, Apple, and Spotify, and also on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribing. Every subscription helps us out, helps us reach more people, and likes and comments. I appreciate all of those so much as it helps me reach more people on such a free and useful platform. So thank you for your love and support. I want to thank all of my guests and helpers behind the scene. I couldn't do it without you. You guys are truly the inspiration that helps me go through this every day. So thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're sharing with your friends, your coworkers, your family, or anyone else you think might be really needing to hear this content on how to heal and overcome from obstacles and tragedies and traumas. That's why we're here, so people can know that they're not alone, get some real good tips on how to better their life and to heal and to really be triumphant in their life and have a life that they can be excited about again. So thanks for being here.